We have to think about ourselves as performance consultants. And
Mm.
performance consultants don't just serve up training as the answer.
Wow, really excited to be here today. My name is Eli Cohen, and I'm the CEO of SalesHood. And we have such a great roster of folks here, a great crew. We are here to talk about elevating your career, your impact, elevating your revenue career and revenue enablement impact. This is the time. This is the moment. 2026 is the moment. Agentic AI is around us. It's more important than ever to be strategic in how we think about revenue systems, how we think about revenue strategy, how we engage with our CROs, with our CEOs, with our CFOs. It's more important than ever. And we, SalesHood, are so excited. We've partnered with the Revenue Enablement Society. We love the society. And we've partnered with Barbara and with Steve and with Jen and the whole crew. And we are excited to officially announce that the Revenue Enablement Society is rolling out a new program, Certified Revenue Enablement Professional. They're going to talk about it. They're going to walk you through it. Everyone needs to sign up for it. And it is powered by SalesHood. And we're so excited to be contributing to the community, to contributing to your career, and to contributing to the industry as a whole. We thought we would start by talking about the industry. And I've known Dave Lichtman for a long time. Dave is a phenomenal leader, former sales leader, former sales executive from Salesforce, also worked at SalesHood, and he went off and started this amazing practice, a recruiting firm for who? For enablement professionals. Boom, a firm designed to help enablement practitioners find jobs and find their careers, and elevate their careers. And excited. And when Barbara and Steve and Jen and I sat down and talked about how we're going to launch this, we want to announce this, we thought we really need an industry leader to tell us what's going on in the industry. Latest and greatest with hiring, latest and greatest with recruiting, latest and greatest with trends, and who better than Dave? And so Dave thought you could introduce yourself briefly, and then really, I want to just get started with this kind of important question. Given everything happening in the industry with agentic, with strategy, with the consolidation happening in the industry, it's crazy. There's so much going on and it's elevating all of us. How do enablement practitioners today position themselves to be strategic? And this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about later. And Dave, why don't you just introduce yourself and start by answering that question for us, because I know I want to know, and I'm sure everyone who's dialed in wants to know as well.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here. I know I've looked at the list of people who are here, a lot of friends in the audience. I feel like you introduced me quite well, actually. So I've been doing this for 7.5 years with Enablematch, and Eli said what Enablematch is, recruiting firm. I'll just add to what he said is, I'm not here because of the recruiting firm. I'm here because through doing what I do with my day job, I have a pretty unique perspective given the number of people I talk to, revenue leaders, practitioners. So I see a lot of data, a lot of trends. And so I like to share them back. And so I'm here under that context of I have a lot of things that I've observed. I think I do want to start, the thing people ask me the most is the kind of the state of the union. What's happening in the industry? And I'll say it a couple of different ways. Just starting with the numbers, there's a really cool stat that I love to reference every quarter or so. So there's a guy out of Australia. His name is Steve 𝐞𝐬𝐳. And starting in 10 years ago, 2016, he started to track the numbers of people who have enablement in their job titles on LinkedIn. It's just a rough metric of how is this industry going. So for 10 years now, he's been tracking that. And it's been interesting to watch over time, because when he started 10 years ago, it was about 3,000 people with this in their titles on LinkedIn. Right now, depending on how you look at the numbers, it's between 18 to 20,000 people, which is a remarkable increase, more than you'll see in a lot of professions. It skyrocketed. It had a big peak 3 years ago. It dropped down. It's been spiking back up again over the past 3 years, slowly. The one thing I'll note that's been interesting on that is he started to split out sales enablement in titles versus revenue enablement in their titles, and which I found is an interesting distinction. I think it also reflects the direction the industry is going, that our purview as enablement practitioners has gotten more robust and broad. And I see this in the companies I talk to. They're not talking about quota carriers only. They're enabling the broader organization. I think that's the healthy and the right trend we want to see. And I think the numbers are showing that as well. So I think from numbers perspective, we are still just tons of momentum towards our profession.
Hey, Dave, the 20-ish thousand number is interesting. The other number that's interesting is people that are adjacent to enablement. So if you look at do you have a point of view on the adjacents and all the supporting cast of characters?
Yeah, and truthfully, the numbers are a little bit muddied, right? There are a lot of vendors who has enablement in their titles now, so it gets a little bit muddy as it is happening. But what I do really take note of, and I think is significant, is there is a lot being built around this career and all around this career. It's like the ecosystem is happening. So whether they're true enablement professionals or adjacent, I actually don't care. What I care about it says that this industry is happening and all the supporting characters and companies are falling in line behind it. It's now an ecosystem. And that to me says everything, that this is really getting momentum beyond just a job title. It's now an ecosystem.
Yeah. The number of the ecosystem of supporting enablement characters, which by the way, anyone that is, whether it's product marketing, whether it's rev ops, whether it's GTM ops, whether it's sales training, these are all folks that they need to also be thinking about elevating their career in enablement. They also need to be positioning themselves as strategic. They also need to understand the context. And I think the course and the program that the Revenue Enablement Society is rolling out is really perfect, not just if you've got enablement in your title, it's also if you want to lean into enablement and elevate that as well. I think it's important. The 300,000 people is just astounding to me.
I look at more directionally that it's trending in the right direction. Yes, it has ups and downs, but I think the momentum is on our side and it's not going anywhere. And people, again, I think people talk a lot about enablement is dead and all these provocative things on LinkedIn. It's not dead. There's a lot going on here, a lot of momentum. I will add though, I think it is tricky. The market is tricky right now, specifically because the job market is tricky right now. And there are big layoffs happening. I'm seeing firsthand a lot of jobs that are out there, job recs that are out there that are being shelved or killed permanently because there is a lot of uncertainty in the economy of where is the economy going? What is the AI's impact on hiring? And I will just say everyone's together, I mean, broadly speaking, trying to figure this out. And I think that the hiring trends we're seeing this year and even a little bit last year as well, I think reflects that uncertainty of where we're going.
So let's just stay on the State of the Union for a second before we move into kind of how people should be thinking about their enablement careers. When a few years ago, like we took a hit. I think there was massive layoffs, massive cuts. We took it on, like, it was tough. It was a lot of folks. How are you seeing that energy in the industry? And as someone who is on the front lines, talking to CROs, helping companies from recruiting, what are you seeing in terms of on the job boards, careers, investments in enablement practitioners? Like, what are you seeing at a macro level right now?
Yeah, everything took a hit 3 years ago. It was a massive drop off. A lot of folks left the profession.
Yeah.
But what didn't change is I feel like a lot of these enlightened CROs who really had good enablement in the past, they still understand the imports of it. And they're still investing, though cautiously, they're still believing in this is a key part to my CRO's success. And so I think that is still happening in a real way. But a lot of folks do get very disillusioned. They're like, I've been laid off 3 times. I'm out of here. And the numbers reflected that for a while. I think the bounce back tells you that the momentum is inevitable, that we're not going anywhere. And this is really, we're the ones who navigate through these difficult times.
And I'd say right now, in an agentic world, with everyone is asking, how does agency and agentic AI and agents, how does that factor into our go-to-market, into our enablement strategy? So with that context, in an agentic AI world, how should people be thinking about their careers in enablement in 2026?
Yeah, that is the key question. On the topic of AI, what I'll say is, what I've been saying to people lately, and I think it's very much a true statement for a very long time, is you as a practitioner and your own AI expertise, that's a bundle. It's one thing, and it's inextricable. And so you have to know that your AI skills are on par with your quote unquote enablement skills. And if you're the kind of person who is just dipping your toe in the AI waters, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle hard, both interviewing and on the job itself, because other folks, competition for the job or in the job, they're not dipping their toe in the water. They're like doing cannonballs. Like they're in the water and getting really immersed. And you have to do that. And I think
when you say cannonball, you mean, what does that mean in the context of, we're talking like, give an example.
Like jumping all in, like you're in the water.
Like in the agentic AI water.
Yeah. So let me say it this way. So if you think about Maslow's hierarchy, if you remember that from school, like the base layer, the most foundational layer is doing stuff with ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, that kind of level of stuff. And that's just understanding the use of AI. The next tier up on the hierarchy is more about using it to applications in the go-to-market motion. How does this affect how we do each part of our go-to-market motion and getting into those waters? And that gets a little more sophisticated, right? You're doing business operations. And that's, I think, where most folks need to be there right now at a minimum. You can't be just planning recipes using kale and eggplant. And that's not enough of use of AI. You got to be doing it for your business and finding good applications and solving problems. And I think that's the minimum today. I think to your point on the agentic thing, I think the tip of the pyramid is doing true agentic stuff, like running agents for multi-step processes within the company. And in terms of careers, the quicker you can move up to the top of that thing, the more you're going to stand out, and the more efficient you're going to be at your job. And so I think you got to keep moving up that pyramid and challenge yourself, not to be complacent with, I can write a good prompt. That's table stakes now. And you got to be a lot more than that.
I think that's great advice. And I think the pyramid is a really good way to think about it. I'll add, and everything you said, I agree with. I'm going to add that I think it's important as strategic enablement practitioners, as leaders in the industry, that we need to have a point of view. And when we're sitting down around the table with our RevOps leaders, with our CROs, we need to have points of view on where we believe agents can make a difference and can help us be more efficient and effective across the life cycle of enablement, from ramp to revenue. So whether it's improvements in onboarding, improvements in coaching, improvements in how we're driving execution at the deal front, and knowing your system, having that point of view, I think is what's going to differentiate folks. So yes, you got to do more than just ChatGPTing this thing. You got to be rolling up your sleeves, building stuff. And we encourage that, and we can support you on that with SalesHood, and absolutely. But Dave, I think having a point of view, what do you think of that? Like, they need to have a point of view on how to leverage agentic AI.
And more than the point of view, experience doing it. And if you have the point of view and experience, that's your job security. Like, that is really what's going to keep you in the job, because they're shifting sands and everything's changing right now. And being deep in that and being able to help the company navigate that and take advantage of that makes you irreplaceable.
So we're going to jump into the course and the program and all the great work that Barbara and Steve and Jen are doing. They're going to walk through how we can help you become more strategic. But before we go there, I think in addition to this agentic point of view and experience, what else would you say? If I'm an enabler, I know there's some of us out there, some folks out there are currently looking. I'm not looking for a new job, so that's why I changed the pronoun from us. There's folks out there that are looking for a new job. They're looking for that promotion. Whether you're looking for a new job or whether you're looking for that promotion, how do you differentiate yourself today in 2026? What advice would you give people?
Yeah, I'll give a couple of things, and I'll kind of turn it back over to the group. So number one is, we've been talking about AI in terms of how it applies to you as a practitioner in the job, right? I can do competitive, I can do content, I can do coaching, all that stuff. Separate from that, what I will say is, if you're interviewing, you must use AI to prep for your interviews every single time and for every single interview you're doing. It's kind of like if you remember, maybe from school again, the prisoner's dilemma. And if other folks are doing it and you're not, you're at a severe disadvantage, and you might as well not even show up. Like, it's that important. And so the prep for how does my background apply to this company? How does Enablement apply to this company, is what they're doing in terms of their business. I'm talking to a CRO on Wednesday. What questions will she ask me? How should I respond to those questions? What questions should I ask her? The CMO is on Friday. What do I want to ask him? What he asked me? Like, every single step of that, you've got to be prepping. You can even do role plays with
absolutely
any of those things. And so it's It is so essential to do that. And if you don't do that, you're just at a disadvantage. So I think differentiating, do all that you can to prepare. And I have free content on all this. If you email me afterwards, I'll give it to you. But please do that. That's number one. The second thing, which we were touching on a few minutes ago, is this idea of like, how does go-to-market affect the AI? How does AI affect the go-to-market and how we're affecting the business?
It's a symbiotic relationship, Dave. Either way it could go, right?
Yeah, and I think having some systems thinking, and also like I view the head of enablement at large more of head of a business analyst, right? I'm here running enablement, and I'm trying to figure out what problems should I be solving with the technology, and trying to figure out what is the right tool to solve a problem. It's not a tool for the sake of a tool, but you're solving a problem, you're maximizing an opportunity, you're doing all that stuff. And I'll give a quick silly metaphor I use all the time. If you go to a construction site, there's a superintendent who runs a construction site. They can't use every tool on the construction site. That's not what they do, but they know what the tools do. And I think it's incumbent upon every enablement leader to understand the categories, right? Like coaching, competitive, content, all those different categories, buyer intent, all those things, understanding what is out there. And then, so, when you see problems on your work site, you know which tools to apply. You don't have to be an expert at all of them, but I do think it's incumbent upon everybody to be familiar with the categories and maybe even a top player in those categories.
Dave, thank you. Great advice. I think on behalf of the industry, I want to thank you. I know you've helped place many people over the years. You've been an amazing friend to SalesHood. We've been friends for many couple decades, and I can't believe it's a couple decades. Super grateful for your advice. I think when we think about enablement and we think about being strategic, you've really helped up the game of many people, but we're not going to be able to do it like the way. What I'm really excited about is what the Revenue Enablement Society is doing. So when we think about how we can elevate everyone's careers, how folks can differentiate, yes, they've got tools for AI, but we need to systematically up-level our thinking. We need to be thinking about engaging with executives. And AI can help, right? I think you can absolutely have an AI agent that can provide you feedback on your presentations, on your conversations with CROs. But I think there needs to be some fundamental strategic content that's going to help elevate. And this is why we invited Barbara and Steve and Jen here. And this is why we decided to partner with them as a company, because they're taking the education that's currently available to the market and they're taking it to the next level. And listen, just Barbara is an amazing leader. I've worked closely with her over the years. Super excited to hear her speak. Steve as well, phenomenal leader. Jen's a phenomenal leader. I'm going to pass this, but again, really excited about the partnership. And just one more thing, folks have been asking in the chat, are there tools that can help enablers beyond just ChatGPT? And absolutely, we're going to do a follow-up. We'll send you some tools. SalesHood can support you on that. We've got AI coaching agents that can help you be more effective and efficient. Dave, once again, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And
thanks for having me.
Barbara and Steve and Jen, please wow us with what's coming. So excited. Let's go.
All right. Thanks so much. It is absolutely a pleasure to be here. And just to emphasize what Eli has already said, it is a great day for a partnership with the Revenue Enablement Society and SalesHood. Our big focus overall is to look at this focus on revenue enablement and why it's really important now to be expanding the scope. So the big thing that Dave's in, we start off with the being strategic. The first thing is that the sales folks aren't the only people driving revenue. And we really want to be focusing on and elevating us as enablers. If we're going to enable revenue, that means we have to be focusing on a much broader scope of people to be working with. And it's not just those people, it's the fact that there's the customer success process and who's being impacted by the renewals. And oh, there's partner revenue that's coming in as well. So how do you look at it as a whole system? So what I want to start off with is there's the perspective of the enabler, which we're going to get to. But we also have to think about those partners that we have in terms of leaders. So I have the pleasure of having Steve Mall as my partner in designing or the next generation, because we're on the second generation of our program, our certification program. And I wanted to have the voice of the CRO, the voice of the Chief Customer Officer. And so Steve represents that. He has been both of those roles. And Steve, I wanted to just ask you, from that perspective of the leadership, talk about what you're expecting of an enablement partner.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara, and welcome everybody, and thank you for being here. As the guy with the most gray hair on the call, I will just say that I've been around since in a revenue role for my entire career, 40 years now. And when I started, you had a VP of sales, and then a senior VP of sales, and then eventually a chief sales officer, and then a chief revenue officer. And unfortunately, sometimes when it went from CSO to CRO, it was a title change, not a responsibility change. And when I took on my first year, and I've done everything in marketing and sales that somebody could humanly be expected to do. But when I went from quota carrying to sales leadership and then into revenue leadership, one of the things I insisted upon, and I didn't know if that it was forward thinking at the time, was that if you want me to be the chief revenue officer, then everybody who produces revenue needs to be part of the organization. And that included, as Barbara said, my professional services teams produce revenue, client success drives revenue, customer support drives revenue. Partners, they all need to be part of a cohesive team working together across a system of revenue generation. And that wasn't always a popular opinion when you sit down with the EMT or the SLT and say, "Hey, I want customer support to work for me," and because that's a turf battle in many organizations, because you got somebody else who's been doing that from an operations perspective. The key is I want somebody when I'm in those organizations doing those jobs, I want revenue enablement to be a business partner, to bring consultative thought processes and consultative ideas to the table. If they're just waiting for me to say what I need in order to drive more revenue, then that's not a very effective response. I need them to say, we know what the mission is. We know what we're trying to do. We know what your objectives are. Here are some things we can do to create value for you. And so bringing ideas proactively was a really large expectation and part of what I wanted a revenue enablement to be able to do. That I think there's been a hindrance to that over the years because it's oftentimes seen as a tactical execution function, and I think that's wrong. It's also that perception perhaps resulted in a lack of visibility. When somebody thinks of it as just sales training or onboarding, that's not indicative of the value that those activities do to the entire revenue engine. So what I look for is to try and create that, like I said, that systems thinking across the entire organization. And Jen, I wanted to bring you in on this because you were both a participant in the first cohort and part of the program management behind the scenes. And what other barriers are you seeing for revenue enablers today, and how do we overcome some of those?
Yeah, Steve, thank you. And hello to everybody that's on the call. It's great to have such a great group here. So a little bit about me too is that I've had a background in being full-time. I've had a background in consulting. And so seeing barriers on both sides of that has been really interesting. And I took the CREP program when I was looking for a role. And I've been out of a full-time role for a year and a half now, which I know is probably not uncommon to a lot of folks here. So if you're looking for that next role, for me, what this was able to do is help break down the barriers and be more strategic and a little bit more with my business acumen to really hit the notes of what I needed for those full-time roles as well as consultancy roles. Being a consultant as well, I'm able to better diagnose any root causes, root problems with some of the skill gaps and some of those things that are causing friction within the organization, such as the collaborative efforts within the groups. It's really been a game changer for me, but I do wonder a little bit if I'm going to expand my acumen, Barbara, in this, what would help me become more consultative in terms of what we're offering here? Because I know we've gone from part one, we're going to part two.
So one of the main things we've been talking about is looking at the scope, but I have three other things I would think about. One is a systems mindset. I think Dave and Steve both mentioned that. So the systems mindset, and what that means is, as foundational, you need to understand that whole system, and you might not right now. You might only understand one segment of that. So there is homework to do to say, how does the support organization work? And what happens when the customer success team identifies that there's potential churn? So the saying you need a systems mindset is one thing. Pushing yourself to get the acumen to learn about the other aspects of the system is important. The next thing is to be thinking more like the CRO, more like the Chief Customer Officer in terms of what you pay attention to. And what you have to pay attention to is metrics and the performance metrics. If our goal as a revenue enabler is to improve readiness and to improve performance. If you're going to improve performance, you have to understand how performance is measured. So that says, A, don't ignore like the QBR meetings or the forecast calls if for a reason that you're not listening. A, you need to listen. And B, you need to able to be curious enough to ask questions to understand the gaps or the anomalies in that. Because if Latin America is struggling, for example, why? Why is Latin America struggling? What's different about the way they're managing things? Oh, great. The UK is doing a wonderful job. What's different about that? So it's start with the metrics, look for the gaps, and be very curious about asking questions to do the why, because when you're going to dig down into things, we have to think about ourselves as performance consultants. And performance consultants don't just serve up training as the answer. So you need to think of it that the solutions that you can provide are a combination of things. It can be identifying an area for a process change. What about incentives? The incentive drives them to behave this way when the goal is something different. So looking at solutions to performance problems or readiness problems, think of it from a consultant mindset.
I'm going to just add one comment. I think I love what you just said, Barbara and team and Jen and Steve. I think I'm hearing you say metrics, understand the gaps, the process gaps, the system gaps, and then really be able to understand the why. And I think I want to connect that with the agent proliferation that's happening in the industry, right? I think there's agent proliferation happening. Reps are building agents, managers are building agents, there's agents. The importance of this course right now, CREP, is that you can have a grounding in the metrics. And you said something else, Barbara, like this understanding how the CRO, understanding how they think, right? I think it's phenomenal, right? And so before you jump in and just start building a bunch of agents, which yes, we told you a minute ago,
Right.
we want you to build them, and we do roll up your sleeves, do more than just checking menus on ChatGPT. What we want you to do is have a strategy, be thoughtful, be purposeful, and it's got to be grounded in the why. Metrics, process gaps, system gaps, day in the life workflows, and then ultimately understanding the why. And I think what this course is going to do is enable you to be able to communicate that more strategically with the CRO, and then you're going to really have a seat at the table. So I know I'm selling for you guys your course, but I think I want to connect those two dots because it's important.
I think it's really important, Eli. And just to remind everybody, the thing I always look for is be anticipatory. Don't wait until you're asked. If you want the seat at the table, then bring ideas to the table and earn your seat. And that means you don't even have the ideas don't even have to be spot on. They don't all have to be accepted. You get credit for having thought about them. You have credit for being proactive. So I would just encourage everybody to really, and GPT and agentic AI are invaluable tools to helping you come up with better ideas. You don't, not all thought has to be original. And I'm going to tell you, I was not on the AI bandwagon when all the hype was going on 3-4 years ago. Matter of fact, I even posted, if you look back in my history of LinkedIn, I said, when it comes to AI, remember some of the I is still very much A. And my philosophy and my perspective on that has changed dramatically with the advancement of the technology.
The tech is caught up, right? I
Yes,
think
the
tech is actually there now with agentic AI for revenue enablement. Like we can actually solve the problems that we've been trying to solve for decades. Sorry, Barbara.
No, I think it's just time. Steve, why don't we dive into the program and show you how we do that to build systematic skills and capabilities.
We lovingly call Certified Revenue Enablement Professional just CREP because it's a lot shorter. And the foundational element I'll start with is just understanding what we're trying to do, what our mission and purpose is. And it's to raise the bar for revenue enablement. And the goal here is to first frame what we mean by that. And I've broken this up into a couple of different phrases because I think it's really important that it's not just the tactical or the techniques that bring, but it's about aligning and continuously improving. I think that last part is really important because it affects people and processes and technology and the content and the insights that come out of it, some of those metrics that Eli and Barbara were just talking about. And it has to be across the full revenue life cycle. And that becomes critical in its success, because if you do that, then you start to reduce friction, both between your organization and the customers and prospects, but also across the departments in your organization. Doesn't mean all the departments have to merge into one. You can still have a sales organization with a leader and a customer success organization with a leader, but the processes across those, the handoffs, we need to take the friction out of those so that we can, in fact, improve the buyer and the customer outcomes and drive faster, more predictable, and more scalable revenue growth. Because at the end of the day, if we're not doing that part of it, we're not enabling revenue.
To do this, we have looked at how to put together the body of knowledge. Okay. And so the body of knowledge, we are going to be treating revenue enablement as a discipline. It's a discipline, and that we're putting boundaries around that as a discipline and treating it like things like the certified learning and development professional and a project management professional. And that's what we're going for, is to codify it and say, this is the body of knowledge that's needed for the foundation to do well, and then the strategies and techniques to be successful at it. So what we've done, we're building on history, right? Eli started talking about sales enablement. We had Scotch, then 𝐞𝐬𝐳. So it's been more than a decade. So it's not new stuff. It's continuing to raise the bar. Okay, so we put together this body of knowledge, and we chose to work with an academic institution in Florida State University as one of the great schools that has a sales institute. And why do we do that? Because Lev Bonney, who's doing that, he does research with companies, what's actually happening in the profession of sales, and how do we take that? And we're working with him to be saying the same thing of the revenue engine. And he is a big proponent of looking at the entire buyer and customer journey. So we've been working together to say, what's the body of knowledge that we need to have as the foundation? And then we're layering in some of the things like we got to walk the talk, which is learning science. How do we bring it to you in a great way so that you can learn it effectively? And we have to remember, like, we got to apply those techniques for us as enablers and give you the best experience in terms of how to learn things. It's not a quick course. It's a process. Steve, you want to talk about that learning process we've applied?
Yeah, we know that everybody who enrolls in CREP is going to walk in with some level of knowledge. The criteria for coming is that you're somewhere below the director level or at the director level down. Yeah, but we want people who come in not just, hey, I'd like to try enablement. What's this all about? We want people to come in with having some level of experience. And the key here is, no matter what level you're at in this learning journey, this path to mastery, we've architected the program to continue to drive greater levels of performance and effectiveness regardless of where you are on this path. Now, how we've architected this, I'll turn it back over to Barbara, but it's a very structured course, very structured program. Barbara, you want to walk us through this?
Sure thing. We have created this as a journey. So think of this more like a college 4-credit course. That's what I want you to be thinking about. Okay. So it's not a quick thing. It is a process. So we have 8 major learning blocks. Each learning block lasts 2 weeks. So it's 16 weeks is the core program. We've got a little bit of pre-work, which is just to ground each other on the same definition so that we've got that going. And the end is a capstone. It's a project to be specific to you and your organization. So we start off with the foundation of revenue enablement. I've seen some comments in here about boundaries. Absolutely. We need to talk about what is the scope of revenue enablement and what is not. We're not RevOps and we're not L&D. So we were going to talk about that and be clear. And it's not only being clear for ourselves, but being clear on being able to negotiate those boundaries with other people in our organization so that we are great partners, but we're not doing somebody else's work. The other foundational piece is around the focus on the buyer journey and the fact that The sales process exists to help buyers buy. So sometimes companies lose a little bit of sight on that and they worry about just the selling process. We want to be helping buyers buy. No revenue happens unless the buyer comes to the conclusion that they need your solution. Big focus on understanding the buyer journey, connecting the internal processes in your organization to that buyer journey to speed it up. Then the point about cross-functional. Okay, if you're only supporting one part of the organization right now, expanding your focus, learning about the domains that you should also be able to support, and the idea of connecting the dots with the handoffs and so forth. Then we ground it in, so therefore, competencies for you as an enabler, things that you need to be able to do. We'll give a specific competency model. Then, so if we've got this grounding, now it's the doing the work that you're going to do. You're going to design and execute programs. We mentioned the point about doing diagnostic, to do diagnosis before you prescribe. Look at solutions. So give you some consulting skills to do a better job of doing the investigation and the performance consulting before you go on. Then there's running an enablement business. What about the systems that you use? What about the tools? We've been talking about tools. How do you organize an enablement function? If you're in a small company, if it's a startup versus one that's a billion-dollar organization, and how would you grow from one to the other? Specifically, let's talk about that measurement. We mentioned about metrics. All right, so let's be specific about metrics you can use and how are you going to compare? Because if you're saying you're making an improvement, you need to be able to measure before and measure after and describe that actual impact that's happening. And in the end, we look at how can you be a stronger strategic leader and be a business partner to the CRO, the chief customer officer, up to the CEO, and being that partner. Now, even if you're early in career, early to mid-career is our target audience, your awareness of all of these things is going to help you accelerate. So we want you to get through all of those aspects in this step-by-step approach. Steve, I want to know about the commitment. You want to talk about what that looks like as the experience.
Yeah, so as you can see on the slide, there's a pre-work that we open up about a month before the cohort begins, and it takes an hour and a half, 2 hours to get done. It's basically just grounding us in terminology and things like that, and giving you the opportunity to use some of SalesHood's phenomenal platform capabilities to introduce yourself and get to know one another as well. Then each of the learning blocks is a 2-week period, as Barbara said, and it takes about 3 hours a week on average. 1 week it might be 3.25, the next week it might be 2.5. But the goal is to try and keep this to a really manageable level so that you can get through it in the time frame. It's a structured pace, but other than a couple of live events that we do, virtually everything within those learning blocks are self-paced. You get to do it at the time and place where it fits into your schedule. And with the capstone event, I just want to reinforce one of the things that Barbara said. That capstone event is intended to be a project that you will be able to lift out of this program and take back to your work and be able to use it. So it's intended to be entirely practical, not theoretical. The overall time commitment's about 60 hours across 5 months, broken up 50-50 between learning things and applying it. And that's at the midpoint between in most professional accreditation certification programs. The range is usually around from 40 to about 100, 110 hours. So 60 is about the midpoint between that. And we really wanted to make it such that professionals who are working can fit this into their schedule.
So I want to add the point about the application here. We've made a bunch of changes to the second rev of our program, and one is the leveraging how we do things differently. So we're using Beyond to create some AI avatars in terms of how some things are done. We're trying to make it so that we can be more responsive and recreate content as we need to. We're applying the AI practice that is available in SalesHood so that you practice.
Yeah,
And
let me show that,
It's like
Barbara.
a drip feed. So, yep, show them the example. Sorry.
Yeah, so that you can't see the whole learning path on one screen, but as you can see, we've broken each of these down into learning blocks. If you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the time for each of those learning blocks. This is a sample. So the person has 1 hour and 12 minutes left, 5 hours and 29 minutes left. So they're each set for 180 minutes. So the 3 hours there per week. When we sat down to design the program, and take it into the newest iteration, we really did structured learning design, and we intentionally put a lot of different variety of interaction types and activity levels in there so that we know that you sit still while we instill is not a very effective learning model. So we want you to be able to put this into practice as you're going. And the cool part is you're going through the program, you're going to be able to take something from learning block 1 and go back and start using it at work. You don't have to wait till you're done with this to start using it. A lot of performance support in there. And the key here is that we're going to use the AI coaching and AI practice capabilities within SalesHood in most of the learning blocks. That is going to make it so powerful as we go through this, because you get to practice things over and again without trying them out at work and seeing how that works out for you. You get to practice until you get a level of proficiency. So we took that learning block design for learning block 6 and built it into SalesHood as modules within a huddle. Learning block 0, which is the pre-work, you can see that we broke this down into videos, self-checks, reading packets, etc. We're going to keep you engaged, not just sit there and absorb information. In learning block 1, we have an AI practice built into it. So you're to be able to do that elevator pitch, or your CRO stops you in the hallway and says, "Hey, what's all this? What does revenue enablement mean to the revenue enablement team?" How about being able to say that without having to stammer over it, and giving yourself a chance to practice. So I'm particularly very excited about the AI capabilities within SalesHood and the flexibility it's given us in building a learning model that's going to make people proficient in the skill sets before they walk out.
Steve and Barbara, can I pause for a question?
Sure, of course.
I had the same question, and the question that's coming up is, could you just talk about new to enablement, veteran, experienced enablers? Does this course, the CREP fit for everyone? How would you talk about your level of experience and what you get out of the course?
I was seeing the comment from Tony, and basically one of the things that we have to do is continuously reinvent ourselves. And so if you have a lot of experience, but it's time to reinvent how you approach different things,
Sharpen
this
the
can be
axe.
Great opportunity. One of the things we're going to do is do what we're going to call the behind the scenes tour. So you'll experience something as a student, and then we'll open the doors and say, and how did we put that together differently today in 2026 than it might have been put together a few years ago? And so that it's that combination of sharpening your own skills and doing it a different way. So learning to do some stuff that you might have done before, but do a different way.
One perspective with careers, I talk to a lot of folks who have been at one company, done enablement there, or maybe 2. What happens is they know 1, maybe 2 flavors of enablement. It's a little bit myopic. They just know what they know. What I like about courses like this is it's more holistic. You can identify your blind spots maybe you haven't covered through your own work experience. And so I think it's nice to have that well-rounded perspective versus just where you've worked.
For me, what was important is the program's realistic. So overall, I was able to have a nice structured pace and flow while continuing to go through and look for different opportunities. The other piece was the dynamic activities and live sessions. To Steve's point about being an MBA type program, I was able to really practice skills within the group. Now we'll be able to use SalesHood with coaching piece, so I'm excited about that. And I was able to learn from industry experts. So I'm seeing this in the chat about people working with RevOps. We had folks like a Steve come there and talk to us and say, this is what we want from you as a collaborator in enablement. And then finally, one of the big pieces for me was mentoring, and then the capstone project. The mentoring, I had full access to a lot of folks that were faculty. And I also had the opportunity to, with the capstone project, implement that. It wasn't something you do and then file it away. It was something that you're definitely going to be using. So I turned from call it a wait staff of the revenue organization to really having my seat at the fine dining table. And people were asking, when are you coming back? So that's what this program's done for me to change things around.
Love to hear from all of you in terms of your word of advice. We'll start with Dave. Word of advice to the audience before the webinar ends.
Sure. The one thing I'll say is, from a career and interviewing point of view, I was saying it's tricky out there. It's very competitive, but I will say so much of it is within your control. And part of that is getting certified and learning more about this, but there's so much that you can do personally to help to make your chances higher. So it's not out of your control. It's not just like people get frustrated and get down. You control a lot of this and take advantage of that.
Thank you, Dave. Barbara?
I would say think about it as investing in yourself so that you can stay ahead and continue to be great in what you do. So CRAP is going to be that drip feed to help you and take a piece and apply it, take another piece and apply it. And we're going to be with you to be coaching and mentoring. Our goal is to make you look great.
Awesome. Steve?
I was going to say very much what Dave did. Take the bull by the horns, take personal responsibility for your own destiny. One of the things that I know some of you will be challenged with is if you want to get your employer to pay for this and creating the business case. So we've created a little helper guide on what to put into that business case discussion. We've even got an ROI model if that's important to your organization, and that will come out in the follow-up emails.
Great. Jen?
Yeah, my big thing is to be open to new experiences. We talked a little bit about making sure that we're understanding the different parts of it, whether you're newer or more experienced in enablement, but also being open, the experiences you'll get from this course. You'll learn so much, not just from the content, but your peers and mentors within the course as well. So don't be afraid to ask, and no question is a bad question. So definitely reach out and feel free to ask us anything.
Right. Thank you to Steve and to Dave and to Barbara and to Jen and to you, Judy, for being here with us, to sharing your thoughts and ideas and inspiring us. My final words here are, I think I've been personally on a mission, and I've been collaborating with many enablement practitioners around the world to elevate the industry, to elevate the profession, to elevate careers, to elevate impact. It's what we do, right? I love it. I love doing it. And I am really excited about the amount of work and thoughtfulness and purposefulness and if you just reflect for a moment on the course outline and the program outline, it's amazing. And what we need the most now in the enablement and in the go-to-market organizations, we need to elevate our thinking so we can be strategic. We can think like CROs, we can think like RevOps leaders, we can think across the entire go-to-market system, across the buyer journey. And there's no other course on the planet like this one that is going to do it. And just kudos to Steve and Barbara and Jen. And there's so many people working behind the scenes. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And thank you to our amazing speakers. Give yourself a round of applause.